Good evening. Sarah Imenu, Part 1. B'Shem Hashem Naseh V'Natzliach. Leilu Nishmat, this shiur is dedicated Leilu Nishmat Yechezkel Baruch ben Avraham Alevi, the Yaakov ben Esther, and all those who were murdered before, on, and after October 7, and all the Chayalim. Refuah Shelema to all our Chayalim, and among them all the Cholim, Zechariah Dov ben Pearl Shira, Avraham ben Chana, Ora Badalia, Solika Dassam bat Ruth, Shimon Daniel ben Michal, בתוך כל חולי עם Israel. To the Atzlacha and safe return of our hostages and soldiers, for the safety of Am Yisrael wherever we are, for the Zivug Hagun to all our singles. Thank you to all my listeners for tuning in and wanting to learn and grow in Torah. And thank you, Hashem, for all your chasadim. So, Sarah Imenu. Sarah is the first of the four imahot, of the mothers, and she was the first one. So there was Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. The first time that we meet Sarah, when we learn about her, we don't really learn about her as being Sarah. Her name is really Sarai. Sarai or Sarah comes from the word Sar, which means an officer or a prince. And so in the Gemara it says that Sarah was Sarai, meaning that she was a princess to her people. And later on she became Sarah, a princess to the whole world. As time went on, she would teach the women, and Avraham would teach the men, and she would spread Hashem knowledge into the world with Avraham, and so she became like a princess for the whole world. Avraham and Sarah were really the first converts. Avraham is the first one who actually found out on his own about Hashem, and obviously he taught his family and taught Sarah, and she decided to go along with him. Avraham married Sarah. She was actually 10 years younger than him. She was his niece. She's the daughter of Haran and the sister of Lot. We don't realize that Lot and Avraham are actually brother-in-laws, but yes, that's where they were. And Sarah has another name. She is called Yiska. Yiska comes Socha, Sachta, that she could see in the future, because her level of nevuah was greater than the one that Avraham had. And number two, Kulam Sochin. What is Kulam Sochin? Means everyone noticed her, looked at her. It means that if Avraham walked down the street, Sarah walked down the street, or she walked into a room, everyone just turned around to look at her. Not that she was attracting attention, wanting to attract attention, not because of the way she behaved or what she was saying or laughing. No, just because she was so beautiful that everyone looked at her. And actually, in Masechet Megillah, it tells us that there were four women in the world, Sarah being the beautiful women in the world. Sarah was the first one, and actually in the Gemara it says that she got some of her beauty from Chava. Rachav was the woman who saved the two spies that Yoshua had sent to Jericho, and later on she was saved with her family, and she married Yehoshua. Avigail was married to Naval HaKarmeli, and then he died. And so after his death, David HaMelech married Avigail. And number four is Esther HaMalka, that her grace really brought out her beauty. And so, Sarah, where was she from? She was from Haran, and she was born in the year 1958. This is the year 1958 from the creation of the world, and she died in the year 2085. And at the age of 65, she moved from Haran and traveled with her husband. Why did they travel? Because Hashem says, Lech Lecha, by the command of Hashem. Hashem told Avraham, go. And Sarah supported her husband, and she believed in Hashem, and so she went with her husband on their journey. They made many stops, and they were able to teach people and convert them. And so their entourage really became bigger and bigger as people would accept their teachings, the teachings of Avraham and Sarah, and they joined them. And it says in Sefer Bereshit, in Parashat Lech Lecha, it says, Vayikach Avraham et rechusho, that Avraham took all his riches and his servants, his animals, everything, and he also took et kol hanefesh asher asu beharan, that he also took the souls that they made, him and Sarah, that they made them in Haran. Now, we cannot make souls. So what does this mean? The meaning is that these were the people that they had converted, the people that they had taught them about Hashem, about the wonders of Hashem, that Hashem is the one who created the world, that Hashem is the one who is in charge of the world, and not the stone, and not the sky, and not the trees, and not the animals, and not the birds, and the fish, and not the mountains, and not the sea, and not the moon, and not the stars. Right? Since in those days it was so rampant, everyone worshipped some kind of a god. And so Avraham would teach the men, and Sarah would teach the women. She really dedicated her life, along with Avraham, to the service of Hashem. Avodat Hashem. Day and night and day, she would not stop, along with Avraham. All they had in mind, their entire goal was to serve Hashem and to teach people about Hashem. She was the faithful wife who supported her husband, and no matter what, she was always behind her husband. And Avraham knew. He knew that. He knew he had her trust. He knew he had her support. He knew he had her love. And she was there for him 24/7. Avraham were told in Parashat Lech Lecha to leave the land, to leave their birthplace. Avraham was told, and to go to the land where I will tell you to. Once you get there, you'll know this is the place where I want you to be, Hashem said to Avraham. And so they traveled, and they traveled, until finally they came to Eretz Israel, to Eretz Canaan, and they realized, there's no food here. There was a hunger. No water, no food. How were they going to survive? Avraham could have asked tons and tons of questions, but he didn't. He said, okay, all right, so there's no food, that's fine. We'll go to Mitzrayim, which is really next door, and there's food. However, going down to Mitzrayim was not such an easy task. And Avraham turned around to Sarah and he said, you are such a beautiful woman. We are going to go down to Mitzrayim. They're going to ask you, who are you? And I need a favor from you. I need you to say that you are my wife. That you are my sister. Don't say you are my wife. Say that you are my sister. And sure enough, Sarah was not afraid for her life. would think that maybe Avraham was hiding behind her. Okay, so let her take the the burden of having to save us both, and let her see that she's a my sister. It looks as if Avraham was really hiding behind Sarah, but that's not so. That's not really what it was. And the danger was real, was very real for both of them. Because if she said he's my husband, it would just get rid of Avraham, and now that's it. She's a widow. She has no husband. And also, if she lies, and Avraham lies, and then they have found out that they both lied, that both of them could get killed. So how could Avraham, knowing that he really loves his wife and cares for her, and he needs her, yet tell her, see that you are my sister? And here the Zohar says like this: there was a malach that was walking ahead of Sarah and Abraham, and that malach, and then Abraham saw that the Shekhinah of Hashem was actually above Sarah. And the malach said to Abraham, don't worry, Sarah is safe. Wherever she's going to be, wherever they'll take her, she is going to be safe. What did Avraham do? He says, okay, I'm just going to do my hishtadlut. I'm just going to try and protect her up to a certain point. And so he built a cage, a wooden box for her. Obviously, he made sure that she was very comfortable. She had a very comfortable chair, and she had everything that she needed. And once they came to the customs, and they saw this big box. So usually when we come to a country, the customs always ask, okay, what's the purpose of your journey here? That wasn't the case. The first thing they asked, what's inside the box? And Avraham said, okay, I'll just pay you as much taxes as you want me to. Just do not open the box. But obviously that made them even more curious. And they said, no, we need you to tell us what it is. What do you have inside this box? And you have to open it. They insisted so much, Avraham had no choice. And they opened the box. And then they said, who is this woman? And they asked her, who are you? Who is this man for you? Is that really what they should be asking? And Sarah said, well, he's my brother. Now, they took her out and they saw her beauty. And so they passed her from one officer to another, saying, what are we going to do with this beauty? And they said, this woman is so beautiful. We're too scared to handle her. She's just too beautiful. There's only one place where she has to go, and that is that she should be taken to, and that is to the palace of Paro. And so, but Avraham knew. Malach had told him, don't worry, she's going to be safe. And the night that Sarah was taken, it was actually the night of the Leila Seder, the night of Pesach. And we know the night of Pesach is the night that Hashem protects us even more than usual. And so Sarah was taken to the palace. Once she was taken to the palace, Hashem put special powers on her clothing, on her jewelry, so that as soon as Paro saw her, wow, he was very taken by her, by this beauty. And she said to him, listen, I am a married woman. But he didn't care. He had no moral values. He didn't care. He didn't care to take a woman who is married. He didn't care. And so, what did he do? He just was thinking about his pleasures, about his own and selfish whatever he wanted. And he said, he really wanted to get closer to her. But every time he tried to get closer to her, because of this power that Hashem put on her clothing and her jewelry, he was zapped. So every time he tried to touch her, he had to pull his hand away because it was like getting an electric shock. And he couldn't get close to her. And he said, "What's this? What's going on with this woman?" She said, "I told you, I'm married." And then there was also the malach that was with her. And the malach said to her, "You tell me when to whip him up. You tell him when to strike him. And I will strike him." And so whenever Paro, she didn't wait for him to start to try and touch her clothing. He would just try and get close. And the malach would whip him up. And Paro felt it. It hurt. I didn't know where it was coming from. What is this? What's going on with this woman? So he was patient. And he waited. And he gave gifts. Every day he would give gifts to Avraham, servants, maids, animals, camels, donkeys, sheep, cows, bulls, you name it. He just gave every day. He thought maybe if he's so nice to her brother, then maybe Sarah would be nice to him too and let him do what he wants to do. But it didn't work. And this lasted for 6 months. However, the Gemara tells us that the first night that Sarah was taken to the palace, she said a prayer to Hashem, and she said, "Ribono shel olam, Master of the universe, Avraham azav et moladeto." Avraham left his birth of place, biglal she'ata tzivita, because you commanded Avraham to leave, not because he wanted to. Ubeavtacha shetov lo, and you promised him it will be for his own good to leave his birthplace. Ve'ani halachti acharav, and I followed him. I followed Avraham, my husband, be'emuna shelema, very faithfully. I just followed. Ve'achshav Avraham bachutz, מחוץ לבית הסוהר, ואני בפנים בבית הסוהר. And she said, now Avraham is outside of the palace, outside of this prison, and I am in a prison. I'm not free. She called the palace a prison. She said, I'm not free. I'm not with my husband. And Hashem answered her right away, and Hashem says, Kol ma she'ani e'aseh, whatever I am going to do, it's going to be only for your sake. So what are we talking about? It's that the clothing caused a Paro to get a shock. The clothing of Sarah and her jewelry. The malach whip him up, and Paro was punished. He was not able to perform with his other wives. And everyone else who lived in the palace, they too were punished. And this punishment lasted for 6 months. After 6 months, Paro said, okay, there's nothing going. Something is very unusual about this woman. And he called Avraham. Who is she for you? And he was hoping against hope, that he would say, she is my sister. But Avraham said no. He said the truth. She is my wife. I was afraid that I would get killed. I had to say that she's my wife, my sister. Then Pharaoh said, gave them even more gifts. And he gave to Sarah the land of Goshen. The land of Goshen is actually the land where Ben Israel, much later on, when they went to Egypt with Avraham, they settled in the land of Goshen, which actually belonged to Sarah. That was a gift that Pharaoh had given to her. And by the time they left Egypt, Mitzrayim, Abraham was very, very wealthy. And that was what Chachamim tell us, Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim, that he had, that when he came to Mitzrayim, he wasn't so wealthy. But he came out of Mitzrayim very wealthy. And so too, when later on the Jews left Mitzrayim, they also left very wealthy. When Abraham told Pharaoh that he's really her husband, and he saw, and Pharaoh felt the punishment, and he saw how he himself was being punished, and everyone else was being punished in the palace, he realized Abraham is too powerful. And so he said, you have to leave the country. He gave them more gifts, and he told them, you have to leave the country. And he warned, no one's allowed to do anything to these people, to harm them in any way. And he himself made sure that he escorted them, along with his ministers and his army. He escorted Avraham and Sarah out of Egypt. And so this is where we are stopping regarding the life of Sarah, and Bezrat Hashem soon we'll have part 2 of Sarah Imenu. Shavuot Tov.